right, it looks like we are live. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Minnassa Wellness. Can we talk? And today I'm saying, meet me in the intersection. Let's meet in the intersection. And so, some real talk about what it is to be a spiritual person in this world, in this divination space here on YouTube. I'm thrilled to have the guest that I have with me today. I have Gabriella Rafiele. I just call you Gabby. Is that even the right way to say your last name?
Yeah, it is. You're perfect.
All right, thank you.
Gabriella Rafiele. Good morning, everybody.
I'm
Or good
waiting for
afternoon.
the I'm waiting for the I'm waiting for the notification to drop. But so Gabriella Rafaele and then Dr. Scholar Lee, who is no stranger to the show. I had him on, it looks like I had you 3 months ago. Was that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, about 3 months ago.
Or maybe because I think it was during Pride.
Yeah, yeah, it was June. Yeah, so 3 months. Yeah, about 3 months.
And so very good. All right. I'm looking over here to see if the show's on and we are live and good to go. And so this show or today's episode, I so in the summer I took about 6 weeks off from YouTube because I was just doing stuff last minute and I thought, that's not my energy and I want to bring my best to anything that I do. And so I took 6 weeks off. And so I brought my mindfulness Morning Mindfulness with Minnassa has come back. And I wanted to do this show, but I kind of thought, nah, I'm not going to do that anymore. Then I had a great talk with Julian Clark, who I met at BTAC, which is Black Trans Advocacy Council Conference. And we had a great talk really about living intersectionally and how I was a complete dunce, my words, how I was a complete dunce at the conference. Now, of course, this is the trans, right? This is a conference for transgender people. But I was so shocked at people who would say, especially with the man, he said, blah, 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 and then I started using testosterone. I'd be like, what? Like, you're not cisgender, man. Like, and then, some woman, like there was a beautiful woman in my class. So because oftentimes, if we're going to be honest, sometimes it's a trans woman brings a lot of that masculinity, maybe an extremely square jaw. And so, and I have bad gaydar, so I'm already kind of just not on the program, right? And this beautiful young lady in my class, and I saw later on Instagram that she was a trans woman. So I was just like, again, but how I have in many ways, even though I consider myself a very open person and a loving person, how I have cisgender blinders on, right? If you look like a woman to me or you look like a man to me, I just assume that's how you were born. And even though, it doesn't matter, you are who you are, it was just kind of revealing to myself about how I can be stuck in my little paradigm and have the best intentions in my heart, but to be in a space where everyone's like me, right? Everyone thinks like me, everyone, da, da, da. And so I wanted to have these two amazing people on today to talk about the intersection that for us to be ourselves, you have to accept us or be able to meet us. You don't have to accept us because we're going to be who we be. But to meet us at the intersection of the multiplicity of who we are. There's a lot of words there.
Yes.
So, sort of what got me started on this, I was telling Dr. Lee that I went with Gabby or was a part of with Gabby on her transition journey. And Gabby also got me started on tarot cards and things. We used to use those old Doreen Virtue cards where
Yes.
everybody on those cards was as white as like Nordic white, like white, not even American white, just like Nordic white. And so I was like, dag, word, okay. And then the traditional tarot, everybody's white in there. And then on Instagram, Barbara Kidd Calvano, who it's my intention to have her on this show in 2024, posted this image. And I got in her DMs and I said, you have a tarot deck with Black people? And she said, yes, I have a whole thing. And so it ended up being this Kyle Gray.
Yes, Kyle Gray. Yeah.
And as you can see, I've used this deck, the bottom's all, angel prayers.
Yes.
And so, to where nowadays I love this because this is something we can talk about in our own community is colorism. So we love all the light skinned folks, but if you chocolatey looking like this, you know, but to have that beautiful angel there, this gorgeous archangel, and then to have both the archangel having locks
Mm.
and this
I
angel having a
love
beautiful,
that one.
yes, and that's from this deck, Angel Guide. Here again, that for us, are we a part of every community or not? And so there's a deck, two beautiful women that put together a deck. They're going through the whole Sabbath of the sun, the witches' Sabbath, for lack of a better word. Well, their very first deck, this is a Latina woman and an African American woman. No black or brown people in that first deck because they were afraid that they wouldn't be accepted into the spiritual community. And so there's a real talk about that. And then I said here in Memphis, at Out Memphis, which is the LGBTQ center, where's the T's at? And where the black folks too, but that's a whole different question. But I said, where's the T's? There are no trans people in Memphis, and part of the challenge because it's not safe to be outed or out. It may be that I don't know because they're not oh, not feeling. Oh, good Lord. Not feeling safe to be themselves. And so let's talk about this intersectionality. So let's talk about, I'll start with you, Gabby. I know, but what was your traditional upbringing in the church and what is part of your deconstruction process? And Dr. Scholar Lee, this question's coming to you as well. What was your traditional upbringing in the church? And so how were you able to deconstruct that and work on your spirituality in being a person that uses tarot cards, oracle cards, uses your spiritual gifts, and to be on your trans journey? And welcome to everyone. Welcome to everyone that's here. To those of you that watch afterwards in the playback, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Make sure you, what am I trying to say? Subscribe
Subscribe.
to my channel. I know. I'm so excited to have the two of you here. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll share some information later. So, Gabby, tell us about your upbringing, your traditional religious or spiritual upbringing, and how have you been able to deconstruct or walk the journey that you're on now?
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to speak. And let me just start out saying that it wasn't an easy process. I think that spirituality in whatever tradition that you're in, if you're doing it with your heart and you're doing it with a lot of sincerity, it's going to break you down. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I grew up in Texas. I live in Los Angeles now in California. But I grew up as a Pentecostal, like, you know, running the aisles and things like that. And I was born into that. But not only that, my background, I'm Salvadorian. So I think out of the Latinos, I think that we are probably one of the most conservatives. So there's an extra of that and a lot of like, being LGBT or even not being a Christian or a Catholic is not really like it's you don't do that. It's very difficult to sort of be into tarot cards and to be into spirituality. But after several years of pretending and trying to mold myself into the mold that I was presented with, I realized that first of all, I had to change my idea of what I thought or what they were teaching me, what God was, what
Mm, mm,
spirituality was. I had to meet God in a whole different way.
mm,
Because I never necessarily really believed from the bottom of my heart that there was something inherently wrong with me, you know?
mm,
And one thing that taught me is I did go to a Bible college, and um, I went to Christ for the Nations actually in Dallas, Texas.
I didn't
And
know that.
yeah, I did. Yeah, I went there for music, and it kind of blew my
Okay.
mind because it's a non-denominational Christian Bible college, and I met people from all types of denominations, all types of backgrounds. Some were even more conservative than we are, some were very liberal, and my mind was blown. I was like, okay, so, and they all, each of them believed their own story like fervently. Like they were just really about it. And so it made me question. I'm like, if what I'm doing, am I just accepting it because someone else is telling me that this is the right thing, or is it really coming from my heart?
Mm, mm.
So when I got tired of that, I decided to leave, and I got the opportunity to move to California, where my mind was even more blown. And I was like, whoa, I didn't have my parents breathing down my neck telling me that I have to do this. I didn't have to go to church 4 times a week anymore because, them Pentecostals like to go to
That's
church.
right. That is right.
Yeah. So, I didn't have to do that anymore. And I started meditating. And actually, your daughter, Lily, was the one who brought me into meditation. And she was like, "You want to come to a meditation with me?" And I was like, "Yeah." And the first meditation is when I truly felt my spirit without any influence of anything else. And what I told God was like, okay, I'm going to break myself down, and I'm just going to meet you for who you really are. And I'm going to meet my spirit, and I'm going to let my spirit flourish in this. And that's when a lot of like the gifts started activating that I had already been operating with them in the church, but I had to change my idea of God. And one thing that I did learn is that nobody has all the answers. You
Mm,
cannot
mm.
put God in a box. I mean, that is ridiculous. Humanity, you cannot fathom what God is and who God is and what it is. And you know what I mean? We are his creation. Um, you can't fit God into a box. So it's like all you can do is trust your intuition and trust your spirituality, because I believe that you are God. So if you're a creator, then that's what happens. And then I really took that to heart, and I said, you know what? I'm going to create my own universe, and I'm going to create the universe that I feel like I am meant to live. And I had to remove my ego and just kind of say, all right, you know, you know what you've been putting off this whole time, you know what it is. And I was like, all right, it's time to do it. It's time to do it. It's now or never. And so I opened myself to be authentically me. And here I am. And now, years later, I am. I have been doing tarot readings for a really long time, but they're not just tarot readings. I think, because I do healings, but I also just provide people with a lot of spiritual guidance, because I feel like the process of my transition has taught me so much about humanity, but also about like finding your truth, finding God, finding your spirit. And one thing, I've done like thousands of readings now. And one thing I will say, humans are all the same. Everyone's the same. Everybody struggles with the same thing. And, thank you to Minnassa to opening up these spaces for all of us to share our wisdom. But yeah, I've been doing that now. I own a spiritual shop in Los Angeles, and this is what I'm doing. I'm just trying to bring a little piece of heaven down to earth, or so people can realize that heaven is here in your heart.
I feel like Beyonce looking down at Blue Ivy at the end of the show. I'm like, oh, my daughter, listen to her speak. So don't just say, what is the name of your shop? Give
Well,
the
yeah, sorry.
address.
It's Esoterica New Age Shop, and it is in Los Angeles and San Fernando Valley in Canoga Park. I know it's a mouthful, but you know where it is.
I know. I actually don't, but I do know where Canoga Park is.
Yeah. So if you want to check it out, my handle here, the LA Oracle, that's where you can find me on Instagram. But the Instagram for the store is esoterica_new age.
All right. Thank you, Gabby. All right. So, Dr. Scholar Lee, share your story, similar, you're similar in similar way.
Well, I was born in a family where my maternal side of my family was apostolic faith, and my paternal side of the family was Baptist. And I was actually baptized under both religions, and because both my parents were teen parents, so my grandparents played a real major role in raising me and bringing me up. So, I went to church. If I wasn't at my mom's, if I wasn't at my grandmother's on my mom's side, I was at my dad's. So, just having that experience with religion, I've always, um, I always had a sense of self as a child. So I knew that I was not aligned with the assignment that was given me, as far as female. I knew that. I would have dreams of being male, waking up depressed because that just was not my reality. And going to church made me created kind of like religious trauma, so to speak, because I was being told that to be one way or to feel one way was not of God. And having that indoctrinated within your system and subconscious, or in your mind, plants a bad seed of self rejection, self neglect, suppression. Because who do I communicate to now about these feelings that I'm having, that are not normal and that are sanctioned to be demonic in some way, shape, or form? How do you love yourself through that? So, growing up with these religious traumas, I just knew that I wanted to be spiritual. And spiritual at that time was allowing me to eliminate the limitations that religion, I felt, brought. Allowing me to be open to hearing what another religion had to say, excuse me, as far as what does the Buddha have to say, or what does the Muslim have to say. And it wasn't necessarily so I can take on the entire belief system, but take something that was so fulfilling. It just allowed me to open myself up to that. Now, as I evolved and when I became enlightened of the trans
Excuse me.
community, I then realized another sense of self. Like, man, this is the piece to the puzzle that I was not aware of this whole time. So I kind of felt whole. And then at the during my transgender experience or journey, I realized how I even transcend outside of that narrative, because from my experiences, even to identify, to be transgender was still putting me in a box that society wanted to create. Because I realized that society likes to label and put you in a box. If they can't define you, they have to define you in some way, shape, or form. And they have to label you in some way, shape, or form to have some sense of understanding of you. And my spiritual experience has enlightened me to the infinite being in which I am. So to be defined is to limit who I am, and only somewhat allows me to bring certain aspects of myself instead of my truth. So evolving and realizing that my spirituality is just a sense of self and truth. It has no certain practices necessarily. I have creative ways of spirituality, from using tarot decks, or participating in candle divination, or journaling is spiritual to me. Taking a nature walk is spiritual to me. Having time with myself and being at peace is spiritual to me. Learning what brings me peace. And what brings me, what keeps me having a sense of self understanding, and developing an inner knowing of self, and overstanding my value so I can understand my truth.
Mm,
And that's what my spirituality is based. Is based off that IOU, that understanding, to develop an inner knowing, to understand my value, worth, and purpose, and to understand nothing but my truth. Because I have a knowing that to understand someone else not is something that's not a is not achievable. It's just really not. I'll never understand people, but I can understand them. I can allow my heart to connect to them. I can show
mm, mm,
compassion towards them. I can have an empathy towards them. But to stand under them is just not something I'm going to do. But I will stand under my truth and I will speak my truth. But in order to do that, I have to have an understanding of it. I have to overstand it so I can understand it. So when I express it, it is delivered so that people can develop that understanding if they are vulnerable enough to do so. So, in my evolution from before to now, when it comes to my spirituality and my transition, I realized that I am a transcender. I am not transgender. I am ascending into this beautiful being. And I love what Gabrielle said because I believe that too. I know that, we are gods. And there's no convincing me that I'm not, because
mm,
I
mm,
created who you see. And I created that from a thought. And I realized that my transition is more magical than anything. And I think that's why people are so intimidated by it, because you can't define a unicorn. You just know that that's just a different looking animal, right? I'm like a purple elephant in the room, and I'm okay being that. And when I have that peace, it brings me so much clarity of who I am, because as a creator, nobody's going to understand your creation, because you only have that vision and you
mm,
only know why your creation is what it is and why it is and its purpose. So, nobody knew why God said, let there be light. He just said, let there be light. And God and people saw the light, and then they adjusted or adapted to it, and then as God continued to create and create and create, people just the world adapts to it. So when it comes to my world, I'm going to create what I want to create, because I'm exercising my God self, my God being. The G is to let you know that you're a gift and you're a genius. So exercise those gifts in your genius way, ingeniously, right? Be omnipotent and omnipresent. Be present in your power, because you are powerful, and be a disciple of your truth. Have dominion and proclaim dominion over self. And that is God energy. That is being God chance, not conscience, but God chance, having the God chance mind, where you are authority, when you have sovereign over you. And you are going to dictate what goes on and how it goes, because that is you optimizing your God self. So that's pretty much been my journey when it comes to evolving. Is just you mentioned something about deconstruction.
mm.
When it came to deconstruction, I had to self analyze, and I'm still in that process, because I'm only 36, so I'm still on that process of deconstruction. But I realized, are these is my way of thinking being something that I want to do, or was it something that was taught to me? So, how did I look at, um, you know, my perceptions on living, my perceptions on being, my perceptions on being good? Is that really my perception, or is that something that my elders or society has said that I should act like in order to navigate a world, to make other people comfortable to be around me? And my goal in life is not to make people feel comfortable around me, but for me to not compromise my comfortability to make others comfortable, but to have a knowing of self and to bring self into spaces, regardless if that's going to weather some feathers, because one thing I can't do is control other people's reactions or feelings towards me. And I'm not going to say how they feel is right or wrong, but I will tell you who I am. And I'm not going to sit here and allow you to tell me who I am. And I'm not going to tell you, and I'm not going to allow you to tell me who I should be. So in deconstructing that, I had to detox the toxicity perceptions of self that I had. I wasn't what I was assigned. I'm not what society is telling me I am. I am just a God being navigating life, transcending to ascend so I can be who it is that I am supposed to be at this time, in this space, at this moment, and in this lifetime. And whatever experiences come my way, my first question is, whether good or bad, what can I learn from this? And how can I see myself in other people? So when I come across some type of resistance where, oh, you're wrong, trans people or this or that, I have to see myself in them, because I once was a person who thought that my life was wrong. I once was a person who judged myself. I once was that person. So how can I love that part of me? Can
And
I,
that is, I want to stop you right there
oh,
because
sorry, go
you
ahead.
saying so many important things. I don't want them to just keep going by. But
Yes.
Gabby, I want you to address that concept of, because you brought it up, right?
Mhm.
That I am the divine, that the God in me, namaste, I see the God in you. So this concept of when people want to judge, and I want you to address it from two points of view. I should have had my friend Shanita on here, who is a sound bowl, is just an amazing sound healer, and she lives, I can never remember if it's North Carolina or South Carolina, but still here in the South. Um, and these beautiful balls, I mean, when she plays them, but what did people initially say when they saw those? Oh, those are like demonic. It's like sound is demonic, really? So again, so Gabby, can you expound? I mean, no, when Dr. Scholar Lee talks, it's like, but that concept of that, I am the God presence. And so whether you have a comment about how I do my spirituality, no, most people aren't going to disagree with you. You take a beautiful walk in the park. I go down to Memphis and go to Overton Park. But I was in Long Beach at an event and I had my tarot cards out. It was like the fourth Thursday or something. They had an event. And this young Latina girl, they had me inside. And you just have a feeling when someone's giving you the devil eye, right? And I looked up and she was just looking at me. So I said, Bruja. And she really looked. I said, no, no, ain't no bruja. But again, that all right. So I had to just sort of make her laugh because she had all these. She didn't see Minnassa. She didn't see Gail's wife or Lily's mama or Donna's daughter. She saw some evil entity sitting there when she didn't even know who I was. So can you? How do you address that, Scarlett? How do you help them? You see the God in them in that situation. How do you bring the goddess in you?
Well, just gonna be honest, it's hard for me. I think that is a struggle, every day, and especially because I'm very sensitive to judgment, because of the way that I was raised. I was raised in a very restricted form of thinking where, I mean, listening to a particular type of music would automatically send you to hell. I was like the kid repenting every night before I go to bed because I was afraid that Jesus was going to come back in the middle of the night. And I'm very sensitive to like judgment and things. But one thing I have learned, and it kind of ties in with the other aspect of it, is I stopped trying to figure out the reason why I want to live this way or why I feel like I am this way or where I fit in, because the truth is I fit into multiple categories. I've
Right, the
had,
intersection.
yeah, I fit into multiple experiences, growing up male and then being female, walking the world as female, being Latina, being born and moving from Texas and here and just seeing different aspects of things. And what I've learned is that the purpose of me being on earth is just to experience, you know? And one thing that I always repeat to myself, and I went back home in, I think it was May. When I say home, I mean back to Texas to visit my family. And I saw a certain family member there that I was trying to avoid. Like, I was just trying to avoid this person because I was like, this is probably the most judgmental person that I could think of. And guess what happened? Guess what happened? I show up and that person is there. Of course, right? That's how life works. But one thing I did learn is like, and the whole night, the whole time they were dead naming me, I mean, it was like almost her doing it on purpose, and it
Of
was like
course.
chipping away at me. Like I cried. I was like, "This is terrible." I felt like I was a 5-year-old again. Like holding myself up, like, "No, don't abuse me." And I realized something: the light doesn't know it's the light unless it goes into the darkness. You know. So therefore, if I don't see the contrast of what I'm not, I can't recognize who I really am. And then coming back home to California, being around the people that accept me, they don't question me. They see me for me and not the way that they want to perceive me, right? Because everything is an illusion. And those people that don't want to recognize who you are truly on the inside, like the lady calling you a bruja, it's just an illusion that they've made up in their head. It's a story that they've made up in their head. And you know what? I ain't
Mhm.
got nothing to do with that. Nothing. You go ahead and think what you want. That's not my problem. The only thing that I can do, and metaphysically, is like I accept myself who I am. Therefore, everything that comes to me is going to be in agreement with it. And if it's not, then it's in contrast. And therefore, it's serving me so that I can reinforce who and what I am.
Mm.
So I honestly, like, I stopped caring about it because everybody wants to talk about, especially. I know you live in Tennessee, and I'm like not allowed to go to the bathrooms there for some reason, and I'm like, I just gotta stop. I gotta stop thinking about that. Just and focus on living who I am authentically.
Well, girl, let me tell you something because living here, I didn't even know how spoiled I was. And Dr. Lee, you may be able to address this too, also living in Atlanta or in, the metropolitan South. So, yeah, I mean, when I first came here, Gail and I moved here to do some business. We met with, first of all, let me congratulate Paul Young. Paul Young has just become the mayor of Memphis. This is a young man, a progressive man, a man who grew up in the church. I think his father is a bishop. His name is Paul, and his sister's name is Dorcas. Now, how more New Testament can your name get? But this man and his club marched in the Pride Parade this year, so much so that they won one of the awards in the Pride Parade. He was at Tri-State Black Pride, I think, or he had a representative there. This man just won, and the reason I say that is because everyone else here is kind of operating still on plantation politics. Like all the white folks have the positions of authority, so you might be the good Negro and you can have this position of authority, but in the end, and so living here, even my biggest challenge is that the LGBTQ community is even segregated and fragmented.
Oh
So
yeah.
basically, the white organization puts on Pride and everyone participates, and then they have Tri State Black Pride. Which, when I got in there, I'm like, where are all these black gay people been? Where you at? Where are you at during the year? Because I don't see you. I don't see you at Out Memphis, which I'm a part of. I'm the chairperson of the seniors committee, senior services committee. Hello, senior. I just turned 60 this year, so I was laughing when Dr. Lee dropped his age. I thought, oh yeah, you really are stepping into your masculine because most women some don't drop their age, so you really learn to let that go, right? But even the fragmentedness of the community here and how they have watch, because again, unicorn, hey, I'm here with y'all over here and I'm here with you. That's how I was in high school. You're not going to tell me who I can have lunch with or who I can hang out with. Okay, I get your little click, but I'm having lunch here today. And so here in Memphis, literally just sort of trying to walk like this, be in everyone's circle. And finally I said, you know what, Minnassa is Minnassa. And so um someone made a comment to me. I was talking to Vanessa Rodley, who is the president of Mid South Pride, and talking about how could I help them. I said, I don't have to be out in front. I'm an amazing admin, and I can do all the behind the scenes stuff. So I put on events. She says, "Oh, Manasa, I've been watching you for a year. You're not the behind the scenes girl." But what made the most? I was like, "Oh, watching me, right?" Because I'm just gonna come as I come, show up with my wife at events, show up with my daughter at events. It's just I will not. I love what Dr. Scholar Lee said. And Gabby, as you and I will grow, I'm going to be who I am. And that causes lots of problems for me in Mississippi where I work. Because when I first came out and told people, I'm married to a woman, you would have thought that I had said, I love stabbing children and then eating their brain, right? I mean, just something horrible. That was their reaction. But now I don't give a damn. Me and my wife are doing this. Me and my wife do this. I'm covered with crystals. And one day I had my crystals out, right? And I just have them there because, whew, that verse we all learn, especially apostolic, and you Pentecostal, me Pentecostal, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. That is so
Ain't
true.
that the
There are
truth?
spiritual entities or spiritual energies that feed off of fear, that feed off of prejudice, that feed off of bigotry, and they are getting big and fat here. And just as I give myself to the light and give myself to the goddess and the God within me, there are people who give themselves to that other type of energy. And so I actually had a supervisor here, not her words, but, and I'm going to use the N word, so get prepared, basically called me an uppity nigger. Now, she didn't use those words, but I was trying to get her to advocate for me on something. And she said, I'm not going to have this conversation with you. I said, well, why not? Because you think you're special and you're better than everyone else. I thought, so I controlled myself from saying no lie detected because she was already on the edge and I knew that would have put her over the edge. But again, what makes people think that I think I'm special? And it's hilarious how many people reinforce you are a special, girl, right? But again, this concept of being myself and advocating for myself and stepping into my power is a foreign concept here in the South.
Yes.
And that again, I don't want to call it the legacy of segregation or the legacy of Jim Crow because that would mean that those things are done. But that segregation and Jim Crow are still a part of how things are done here. It's still part of the power play. And that's why I was so started with congratulating Paul Young because he breaks, in my mind, is breaking that cycle. They didn't elect those older men who knew how to play plantation politics here. The city said we want something new. And so that's what excites me. But it's a foreign concept. So living in LA, I used to hold Gail's hand. I don't have an LGBTQ flag out here because I ain't trying to get in that mess, right? I don't
Right.
want to give you a beat down because you thought you could come. I'll be honest, when we got married here, I wanted to get married inside the house because I was afraid to get married outside, right? So something I never knew, a
Yeah.
fear I never knew living in California.
And I feel like what I've noticed is like even places like for example Austin, Texas, or what is it, Fayetteville in Arkansas, or places that are very artsy, it tends to have like more free thinkers. And I think
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in the South and many places in the world is, and then maybe in the South more predominantly than the rest of the country, is like they'll keep you comfortable so you have no reason to question. And what I notice, like from people that I've grown up with, unless they're some type of LGBTQIA plus, right, or anything, they don't have a reason to question. So why should
No,
they? It's
correct,
easy for you to just go with society.
correct.
There's a term they have in Dallas. I don't know if that still exists, but back in my day it did. You're like a 30,000 or a 30K millionaire, because with 30,000 you can own a house, you go out to eat every day, you have a nice car, you live like a millionaire. So you have no reason to question.
Mm.
Everything is like reinforced. When you come cities like LA, or places where there's more diversity or people that are more artsy and free thinking, I feel like their individuality is a little bit more celebrated. So I think
Mm.
it's a whole entire construct, and they like to control. And that's why churches are so big down there, is because it's all about control. Religion is about control, unfortunately.
Indeed, a church on every block. I spoke at a church recently and I said, how is it that there's a church on every block and yet the literacy rate here in Tennessee is so low? Most people here have a sixth grade literacy rate, right? So Think of how you were when you were 11 or 12, trying to take in different concepts like, oh, people can have their own opinions, people can live their own lives. That's not what you learned in elementary school. You were learning to conform. And so that concept, and so again, and you're in a different place, can you expand your mind? Can you expand your mind? And you don't have to agree with me or Gabby or Dr. Lee to have an expanded mind, but can you see that even where someone's different, how can I learn from that? How can I participate in that? So, Dr. Lee, do you feel that where the part where you live in Atlanta, there's more acceptability, or is it kind of smile in your face, frown behind your back?
Mm, well, I'm still navigating Atlanta. I've only been out here for 2 years as we speak, but um, you know, I from my personal experience, just for the years I've been here thus far, just living, I should say, you know, everywhere is like that. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Like, no matter if you're in Atlanta, if you're in Nebraska, if you're in somewhere else, you're just dealing with people. And people are a majority of them just they don't know who they are. They really don't. They're not aware, or they have not acknowledged, or maybe they are aware but have not acknowledged, or maybe they're aware and have acknowledged but not accepted. So when you're dealing with somebody who is aware of who they are, acknowledges who they are, and accepts who they are, then you're triggering people who have not
mm,
aligned those three. So it's like living in your truth and you're in a room full of liars, or people who like to
mm,
identify or live under labels and wear false masks, um, or just live with their representative instead of living with their truth.
mm,
So if I'm bringing truth into the room, it's going to trigger those who are not
mm.
aligned with theirs.
That's very true. I didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah, and it's gonna take that out, because at the end of the day, my difference shouldn't is not going to affect you in any way. My difference is not going to influence you in any way. Why? Because you have control over you.
Mm,
In order for me to affect or effect you, you have to allow my energy to have some type of power over you. So if I'm triggering you to be mad because I'm saying I'm this, or I'm living my life a certain way, and you feel bothered by that, that has nothing. You're giving me a power that you don't even know you're giving me.
true,
Because
true.
if you're telling me that you're poly, or you want to, or however way you want to live your life, or I'm be like, oh, that's what's up. I'm not gonna sit here and be angered or frustrated or whatever. I'm gonna be like, that's cool, because that's not impacting my life. Because you're poly doesn't mean that I need to be, or I need to partake, or I need to offend you because I'm not that. No, if anything, because I'm a different person, I can respect and love on the fact that you're different. And people as a collective have not reached that level of emotional intelligence, because people are not emotionally intelligent. People are just emotionally unstable. And that's why we have politicians in office, including the politicians in office, because they're emotionally unstable. They're not intelligent. There's no reason for you to down or pass laws to confine or condemn someone to be somebody that makes you feel comfortable, and you don't see them every day. You don't know who they are. They're not bothering you. They're really not. They're just living their life. And as a leader, you want to lead the people to their truth, not from it.
Mm, mm,
So if you're leading people from their truth, then you're not a leader. You're just as much as a follower.
mm,
You're not creating policy, you're creating imprisonment.
mm, mm, mm,
So when it comes to, I feel that if you love the differences within you, and if you love the magical you, then
mm,
you will love somebody who's different than you. I don't care if they got green hair and gold teeth. You're gonna be like, man, that's cool. And you're gonna love the confidentness that exude, the energy that exudes from them wearing their hair green, or saying that you're going to love and admire that boldness because you love and admire the fact that you're bold. So I don't
mm,
take people's reactions towards me different. I mean, I don't take their reactions towards me personal. I know that that's a them problem and not a me
mm, mm,
problem, because at the
mm,
end of the day, I know I have a God heart. My heart is of God, it's not of gold. So at the end of the day, I'm not walking into a room to make people feel a certain way about me. I'm walking into a room with my truth and nothing but it. And if it triggers some people, then maybe that's what I was here to do.
mm,
Trigger you,
mm,
because triggers, they allow, they enlighten, they're supposed to enlighten you to what's not healed within you.
mm. Now,
And
let me stop you there because that's a very big concept. Heal. So I think you and Gabby both represent it, and in my own journey, but represent healing your identity, healing, having understanding that you have. So let's talk about being self empowered, which is really a foreign concept. And I think, Scholar, what you're talking about is that even in politics, like, my undergrads in politics and watching what's happening in the US Congress, I'm like, you guys, now there's no speaker of the house. You do you even the people who even got elected understand how the government works? You have to have someone who from this branch who talks to this branch who talks to this branch, and because they disagree with you, you're going to just oust them, or you have your own, so it's very funny. So someone had said that back in the day when I was a kid, before the two of you, we don't talk about religion or politics. But what has happened is because that was the stance, nowadays we don't know how to talk about religion and politics because we didn't create a conversation around it. So we can't even talk about those fundamental things. I mean, I've told Gail we need to have a whole conversation about sex in this country, right? Let's just talk about it. Wayne Brady came out as poly. Oh, yeah, no, is that right? Well, he not poly, pan, as pansexual. And I said to Gail, no offense. I said, that ain't nothing for a man to say that. A man will fuck anybody, right? That was just my comment, right? But the truth is, under the right circumstance, we will probably all get down with someone. The right feeling, the right mood, maybe the right drink, right? So why do we have to make those types of comments? Right? And again, this world of defining, and so um, what brought you to the place to where you felt self-empowered? I will share that. um, I think Gabby knows, when I very first met my wife, I was married to someone else.
Yes.
But at this, married to a man, and I had always felt some kind of way about some women. Like, let me tell you, living here in the South, all these booties, I'm like, oh Lord, have mercy. Yes, just keep on walking in front. I'm not even going that way to work, but I'm gonna keep walking behind you for a few more steps, okay, right? But at 50 years old, on the phone, crying to my mother, coming out about my love for Gail, that at 50, because everyone else I could give a damn about. But if my mom had said something, well, I love Gail and it was gonna move forward. So, but I had to make that choice that here is Reverend, right? Y'all know me as Minnassa, but here's Reverend Villa Willis, who's been married to a man, had a kid with a man, not the same man, with another man, is now in love with this woman and is ready to live with her and to make my life with her. Now we're married. Now she trapped me, right? Um, but again, that moment where I had to step into my own power, that this is it, recovering people pleaser that I am, you know, my mom and I had the best conversation talking about Gail. She hit me with all these Bible verses, right? You were a minister, you know about this, right? The first time we probably ever had a real honest conversation. And I will, I know the Bible too. So when I march down on Bill Street and they all yelling their verses, I hit them back with 1 John 4:7-8. Beloved, let us love one another. Love is of God, and everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. If you don't love, you don't know God, for God is love. So when I hit them with that verse, first of all, I guess they can't believe some LGBTQ person is spouting Bible verses back at them. It's like, you better watch out. You you don't know who you're talking with right now. But to be self-empowered, to say, like it or not, this is who I am. And period. Don't even have this is who I am. Right? I don't have to go in the grocery store and tell people I don't like you because your hair is too long, and I don't like you because of the shirt you're wearing, and you got on Crocs, so I don't like you, and you got liver in your basket, so you're obviously a horrible person. So I don't, right? In the grocery store, no one knows who I am, other than the lady rushing around trying to get the hell out. Right? They not like, oh, let me see. Are you a lesbian or bisexual? You remember the LGBTQ community? Do you have tarot? Like, right? That's what I'm saying. In the grocery store, we just who he is.
Right.
How do we bring that self empowerment? Or I think Dr. Lee brought a point, and Gabby, you talked about it too. Is that when you bring your light to a space that is dark, just like if someone who's been in a dark room comes out to the light is gonna hurt. So how do we? And we don't have much time left. How do we? How do you? Or let's just talk about being the light in dark places.
Okay.
I've just had to make that choice. So yes, I talk about that I have a wife, and this is what my wife and I do, even in Mississippi, even with Trump supporters there in the hospital where I work. I just talk about it. And you can say something about it, but I'm not going to argue with you about it because at the end of the day, when I leave that hospital, I'm coming home to this house.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm
Exactly.
not living with you. You not paying none of my bills.
Hmm.
Right? So I love being my light. I love that. That's what part of the reason I got back on YouTube is bringing that light. And Gabby, you talked about spiritual guidance. I mean, because a lot of people, Michelle told me this years ago. You, Michelle Armour, told me this years ago. When people come to get a tarot reading, they're coming for three reasons: career, money, and love. And I tell Gail, I wish I could be the person who could just do readings and say, this, how to get your ex back. Well, anybody knows me, if you my ex, I don't even talk to you. I'm not trying to get back with you. Right? I'm not trying to get you back. So I don't even understand that concept. But again, spiritual guidance. How, as all the three of us, I see us all as spiritual leaders in allowing people to step into their godness or their divinity. And so I'm going to allow both of you to close. What is a way, if you could say, if this is the best way in this world to step into your divinity, what would you say? How you do it, and then what would you say? And I'll start with you, Gabby.
Okay. Yeah, something that you said actually struck a chord with me because the difference between, for me personally, and I know maybe Dr. Lee, you could kind of relate to this as well, is like early on in your transition, and I always said this, it's like someone flipped me inside out. Like the deepest, darkest secret, shame, whatever that I carried my entire life was now visible. And going to the grocery store was actually like a parade for me, you
Hmm.
know? Like everyone knew, like, that is a trans woman. That is a man in a wig. You know what I mean? Like it just like that. And what I had to learn to do over the years, you know, is to literally stop validating myself through external sources.
Hmm.
And I thought with my family who's talking all this mess and like judging me and asking me why I'm doing this, I'm like, okay, hold on a minute. You think about me maybe 2 minutes out of the entire year, but you go home to your husband or your wife and your kids and you're at peace. And I'm supposed to be torturing myself over what you said when you don't actually care about me.
Hmm.
Because it's
Hmm.
something I realized also, people don't care as much as you think they do.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
like to pretend they do, and they like to talk a lot of mess because That is part of their ego that is being fed, right? When you don't know who you are, you're going to get triggered when you see somebody who knows who they are, or is at least trying to be who they are. So the way that I've learned to kind of bring self-empowerment to myself is to actually realize that we're all just human beings. We're all just bags of bones and water walking around trying to figure out. Nobody has all the answers. So what's the big deal? What's the big deal? And when you don't validate yourself through external sources, it brings a self-empowerment to you, because then you're at peace with yourself, and that's what counts. And then eventually, and anybody out there that is thinking about coming out, I guarantee you, you will find your family. You will
Mm,
find your chosen family. You will find a community that is going to see you for you and not what they want to see you as.
mm,
And
mm.
you know, even movements such as like ours, LGBTQ, can be dangerous as well when you start putting so much emphasis on your identity, on the letter that you represent. This should come from the inside, from you. We all need to define ourselves, and it helps us to find each other as a community, and to say like, okay, yeah, we're not alone. I'm not alone. Thank God that there's Dr. Lee here. Thank God that there is you here. But it doesn't define me. The letter T does not define me. It is just a description of who I am, because I'm a human being and we all need to describe ourselves, right?
That's right, or part of where you are in some part of where you are on the intersection, because you're a multiplicity of people, multiplicity of
Exactly.
identities.
Yeah. So my best advice for everyone out there listening is just like, validate, self-validate, find your peace. Do not focus on don't get caught up into all this identity politics. It's all an illusion anyways. You are God living in a human form. You chose to live this existence and experience life in the way that you're doing. That's it. Just be love, be God, create.
All right. Amen. All right, Dr. Lee, close us out.
um, well, I would say, behave comes to mind. Who do I need to be? You ask yourself, who do I need to be to have the experiences, that to have certain experiences? My trans, to be transgender is an experience. It's just an experience. That's it. I'm a person of trans experience, but I am a person first, you know? So ask yourself, who do I need to be to have an experience of being a millionaire, or being married, or being truthful, or being authentic? What does that look like? And be that energy. We have to understand that we're energy. So if
Mm,
if, if you embody a certain energy, you're gonna have certain experiences.
mm,
And those experiences will educate you. And that education will elevate you. And that elevation will enlighten you. And once you're enlightened, you're now empowered. And when you're empowered, you take this journey of exploration, which expands you, which excels you, which evolves you. So those are the ease of evolution, as I like to say, because your energy first. You're a star, right? Form back to dust once we, you know, go, ascend to another dimension. And when Gabrielle mentioned energy, I mean ego. I define ego as energies getting outside of self, because when you're an energy that is subjective and victim, or subjective to labels and limitations, you find yourself outside of you instead of inside of you.
mm,
And that's why the ego always attacks, because you're attacking someone who is inside of themselves, who knows who they are, who operates from that sense of from internal. So when you're operating from an ego standpoint, you find yourself operating from a victim subjective standpoint. And that's why you're bothered by other people's ways of living and becoming. So I just empower everybody once again to write down what your gifts are. And that is what makes you a genius. And
mm.
what do you need to do to be omnipresent as a genius, to be omnipotent, to be powerful? And how can you be a disciple? How can you be disciplined and being dominant and having dominion over your life, where what it is you do is what's going to be done? So take that pen and stop writing his and her story and write your story, is what
Mm,
I'm saying. Be the
mm,
author of you,
mm.
because that's what authority is, right? Let's take the ity out, and what does that make you? The author.
Mm.
So write your story and be bold in it, because that's what life is like. So I'm gonna just
Excellent.
leave it there.
Excellent. So y'all see why I have them on here. This is an amazing, amazing guest. Again, thank you for those of you who are here and stayed with us. Thank you for those of you who will see it afterwards. I do want to let you know that I'm having book club this month, and this is the book, The Soul of Money. It is the third Thursday. It's part of my Patreon, but the book club is for my patrons. But for this month, I'm opening it up to everyone because part of my healing with my coach was I had unhealthy money ideas based on my worth again, right? And so going this process of healing, I want myself and those who are willing to come with me, let's walk into 2024 with a healed or on that journey of healing our mentality about money. I listened to a podcast where a lady said her father wanted to be of service. And so he chose a nonprofit. So they were broke most of their lives, right? But why is it that that's the choice? You're either serving and broke or rich and awful. That's again a false construct. That you can be fucking filthy rich and serve and a light on this planet. And that's where Manas is getting ready to go and is going. And just saying, come on, y'all can be hanging out on my yacht, right?
I know that's right.
Right in the Caicos, and then we're gonna be making a difference in this world.
I know that's right.
So, the Soul of Money, you can get the book. You can reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll send you the Zoom link, or if you know how to find me through my Gmail, it's the Soul of Money on Thursday the 19th. And so I thank you for being here. If you're on the replay, make sure you subscribe to my channel. All the information about these two amazing people are in the show notes. You can find the links to how to get to them. And thank you, everyone. And I'll see you in a couple weeks and see you on Monday for Mindful Mornings with Minnassa.
Bye. Thank you.